The billionaire called her uneducated while mocking her cleaning until she solved the equation that was costing him billions. Can a maid really make a billionaire speechless? Let's find out. We live in a world where we judge people by the uniform they wear. We see a billionaire like Ivar and see a god, unshakable, brilliant, and untouchable. We see a maid like Tamsa and see a shadow, someone who cleans the mess but has nothing to say. But what happens when the person holding the mop is actually the smartest person in the room? Today we're entering the high-stakes world of Ivar's Penthouse, where a simple cleaning lady did the impossible. She silenced a man who hasn't been told no in 20 years. This isn't just a story about a hidden PhD, it's a story about the power of the invisible. Welcome to the story room. Please hit that subscribe button and tell us, have you ever been underestimated? Billionaires are rarely surprised. Men like Ivar operate on a level of total control. They have the best advisors, the fastest computers, and more money than most small countries. Ivar was known for his cold, calculating demeanor. He was often called a Mafia Boss in the boardroom because of how ruthlessly he crushed his competition. To him, the world was divided into two groups, those who lead and those who serve. Tamsa fell firmly into the second group. For 6 months, she had been cleaning Ivar's private study. She was invisible. She moved around his mahogany desk while he shouted into phones and signed multi-million-dollar contracts. Ivar never even learned her last name. To him, she was just the help, someone he assumed lacked the drive or the brains to be anything more. The challenge here is the billionaire wall. How do you stun a man who thinks he knows everything? Ivar believed that if someone was cleaning floors, it was because they had no other choice and no other skills. He would openly mock Tamsa, using complex technical jargon or speaking in high-level economic theories just to make himself feel superior, assuming she couldn't understand a single word. He lived in a bubble of arrogance, convinced that wealth was synonymous with worth. He didn't realize that Tamsa wasn't just a maid. She was a woman with a PhD in applied mathematics from MIT who had been forced into menial labor to pay for her brother's life-saving surgery. She was a silent genius living in a lion's den, waiting for the moment the lion finally stumbled. The tension came to a head on a rainy Tuesday. Ivar was hosting a crisis meeting. A massive glitch in his company's algorithmic trading software was hemorrhaging $50,000 every minute. His top engineers were on a video wall, sweating, stammering, and failing to find the ghost in the machine. Ivar was livid. He was pacing the room, throwing glass tumblers against the wall, and screaming about incompetence. Tamsa was there, quietly sweeping up the glass. Ivar looked at her, his face red with rage, and barked, "Get out. I'm surrounded by idiots and looking at your simple face is making it worse. You probably can't even count to 10, let alone understand why my empire is collapsing." He turned back to the screen, where complex lines of code and differential equations were projected. The engineers were arguing over a variable that wouldn't balance. They were stuck. The room was thick with the smell of expensive cigars and desperation. Ivar was about to fire his entire board of directors when Tamsa stopped sweeping. She didn't leave the room. Instead, she walked right up to the projection. The engineers went silent. Ivar's mouth hung open, ready to unleash another insult. He thought she was going to clean the screen. He thought she was lost. But then Tamsa picked up a digital stylus from the desk. She didn't look at Ivar. She looked at the code. For a moment, the only sound was the rain against the window and the ticking of a $100,000 clock. The stakes were higher than they had ever been. If she was wrong, she'd be blacklisted forever. If she was right, the world would never look at her the same way again. Tamsa didn't hesitate. With a steady hand, she circled a specific line of the algorithm. Then she spoke. Her voice wasn't the timid whisper of a maid. It was the sharp, authoritative tone of a scholar. "You're treating the volatility as a linear constant," she said, her eyes fixed on the code. "But in a high-frequency environment, it's a stochastic variable. You've miscalculated the Taylor series expansion on page 4. Correct the decay rate and the glitch disappears." The room went dead silent. The engineers on the screen froze. Ivar stood perfectly still, his hand halfway to his drink. One of the lead developers on the screen leaned in, his eyes widening. "Wait, she's right. If we adjust the decay rate, my God, the logic holds." Tamsa set the stylus down. She looked Ivar directly in the eye. The Mafia Boss of the tech world was suddenly small. "I have a PhD in mathematics, Mr. Ivar. I clean your floors because the hospital doesn't accept intelligence as a down payment for heart surgery. But don't ever mistake my silence for ignorance again." The silence that followed was heavy. It was the sound of a billionaire's ego shattering. Ivar couldn't find his voice. He looked at the screen, then at the mop, then at the woman who had just saved him $40 million in under 30 seconds. He was speechless not just because she was smart, but because he realized he had been treating a literal genius like a piece of equipment. The power dynamic shifted in a heartbeat. The boss was now the student and the maid was the master. Tamsa's words did what no rival could. They humbled a billionaire. She proved that a degree doesn't define your worth, and a uniform doesn't define your brain. Ivar offered her a partnership that night, but Tamsa only asked for one thing: respect for those the world chooses not to see. What do you think is the most powerful thing someone could say to leave a billionaire speechless? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story of the ultimate hidden genius, make sure to like and subscribe to the Story Room for more incredible life lessons.